Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. This is Rick Hanson, and I have a special guest today, Lori Ellis. It's interesting because Ashley Kurtenbach suggested that I talk to Lori Ellis, and I said, well, I'll try getting a hold of her, and I finally got a hold of you, and now we're finally talking, and this will be a fun episode, fun and educational and interesting. I'm going to let Lori introduce herself, and then we're going to start in on the conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. And, we've already had, like, when you made contact and told me, you had this podcast, I started listening to it. And we've already had a couple of really great conversations. And I remember thinking after the first time we talked, it was like, well, that was a podcast right there. That should have been recorded.
Yeah, it should have been.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a great conversation. So thanks for having me. And Ashley's awesome.
Yes.
So appreciate her suggesting that. So my name is Lori Ellis. I'm a mother and a grandmother first and foremost. I have an amazing family, and it's my heart and soul. I've been in the wellness and fitness industry for a couple of decades now, on my own wellness and fitness journey for 25 years. After an experience of getting to the point where I got to make a choice, whether I wanted to continue going down the road I was on or I wanted to make a change. And so that happened 25 years ago. And I've been on this amazing journey called wellness, which is a huge topic, involves many, many different puzzle pieces. I always say, look at it like this great big picture. It's your picture. It's full of many, many puzzle pieces. And a lot of them are similar to other people as far as physiology and the basic, human things that the body needs and things like that. But otherwise, everybody's customized. And there's so many pieces. And we get the opportunity every day to look at that picture and decide what pieces still fit, or did they ever fit? And we get to remove those, and we get to replace those with things that help us to live a healthier, happier, stronger life at any age. And I can tell you, and it's a daily journey, like it's never ending, right? This is this beautiful existence we call life. We walk around in this body that we get the beautiful gift of having to, I say, take our soul through this physical existence, right? It's such a gift.
Yep.
I call it the vehicle that houses our soul. And we get to take care of it once we're aware that we have this to take care of, because so often we go through life not even thinking about, what do I need? What does my body need? Life is busy. We all have responsibilities. We have all these schedules and all these things. And sometimes we forget. So it's a constant journey that we get up every morning and ask the questions and pay attention, and be able to make those choices to live a healthier life. So, I always say, like, I don't have all the answers. I'm still living this. I'm very fortunate that I had that moment 25 years ago where I was like, I don't want this to continue. After 2 major surgeries, 2 years in a row for an inflammatory condition called endometriosis, that women listening, will know what I'm talking about. And what was going on wasn't helping me to get better. So I made the decision, like, I don't want to keep doing this. What can I do differently? And I asked the question, and then I said, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to help my body get well. And I don't know what that looks like, but every day I'm going to learn something. And so I just took that leap and made a different decision. And then I always say, every day is another decision. It's another opportunity to have the awareness to make another choice toward the life that you do want. And so we're consistently learning, which I think is fantastic. I love learning. So I'm open to, how can life be even better? And then because I made the commitment 25 years ago, and I said, when I figure this out, and I went back home and I recovered from that surgery, and I went back to school, And I closed a business I was running from home, and I said, I'm going to learn this. And so I put myself out into the position of being able to learn everything I could. And that's what I continue to do to this day. And then I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to teach and share everything I learned, because I just knew and I felt within me that this was going to be an incredible journey. It was a gift, and it really opened me up to what I felt was my next purpose in that season of my life.
Well, isn't it amazing how things happen? Because my post today was about what keeps me moving, what keeps me going is about being curious. And I like
Yes.
to ask the questions. I like to ask the questions I explained this to a person the other day. I said, well, it was actually, and I told you I did an episode with Dr. Jensen, and I said, here's the deal. I watched the movie Seven. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Seven with Brad Pitt, and
I have
it's
not.
about it's about the seven deadly sins, and I didn't know what the seven deadly sins really were, so I got the book Dante's Inferno, and I read Dante, and I said I wouldn't do that if I was in a class. You should do it, but reading it by yourself is kind of boring. But my point is, I like to learn about things that I don't know about, and and I hate that. I said today that the the person that thinks they know everything isn't the person I want to talk to, and I just shut down when I start talking to a know-it-all that is an arrogant prick. We'll just say, and I want the person that I can learn from, as well as they ask me questions too. So this is going to be a wonderful conversation here, because I'm curious and you like learning, and so this is great. It is funny because I just did a little episode. We'll keep on working on this about getting the funk out of me, and I'm learning about that too. And I believe I like what you're talking about, is finding those things to keep moving, because I we're about we're both about the same age, which is
58. I'm
amazing.
58.
I'll be 57 in 23 days. So, and it's great, because here's the other thing that I see is people our age. You can walk you I know you live in Rapid City. I live, but if you go home, I live in a little town called Heights, but if I go home or wherever, people our age aren't in very good shape. And I'm not putting them down, because I think that that's a lifestyle they live, and I don't put anybody down if that's if like you said earlier, that's the choice you make. But here's what I want to do is I want to keep on seeing those views on the top of the mountain as long as I can. And I was at a place, and I talked to a guy who was 94 years old that kept on climbing mountains and doing his own thing. And you might not do it to the way you do it when you were 20, but I can tell you, getting up every morning, like, and breathing in fresh air and hearing the birds, and in the spring, right now, all I hear is wind blow through my ears, but it's good to get that fresh air in. And then we are so lucky these days to have health and wellness podcasts that have the true experts out there that can give us ideas. I like that. I was listening. You have a podcast, and I was listening to that. But here's where I'm going with this: is you give me an idea, and I go research it, and I see if it fits what I want to do. And that's where this world is going. And here's the other thing I like about being able to do this episode with you is we're both open books. I mean, if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. And you guys out there need to listen to Lori's podcast, because especially if you're a female, but and even as a male, I mean, there's things that you've talked about too that were very interesting. The get to or have to episode she did was very interesting, because that's where I look at things. I look at things as a get to. It's funny, like I grew up on a ranch in central South Dakota, and when I go back and work, there's people that do, my friends and other people do this as their livelihood. And I look at it as a get to, but they have to go out and do this stuff. They have to go do it. And it just makes it more fun when you get to do it.
Yes. Yes, because it's a choice. Well, and what you're talking about, I really am enjoying that because it is an awareness. So that gift of awareness is the clarity, right? That clarity comes. So awareness without judgment. I always like to say that because I work with so many people that have these programmed judgments in their mindset. And I had to, and still am at 58, moving through a lot of those programmed, conditioned thoughts and beliefs that just happened throughout our lives when we were downloading information, right? And so we are programmed and we are conditioned to think and behave and have a routine in a certain way. And our habits are based on those beliefs that we were programmed with. And we come to a point in our lives, and I really believe everybody gets to this point, and then they choose to be aware or not. And the awareness without judgment, non-reactive to that awareness, is simply being curious about, okay, this is where I am. Is this where I want to be? Is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to feel? Is it true that it's just because I'm this chronological age, or because of these genetics, or where I live, or whatever, right? So we get to just ask the question, and is this really what I want? And in that moment of non-judgment, of non-reaction, you get clarity and you get the gift of saying yes or no. And then you can say, I get to choose what I think. I don't have to think that way just because I grew up thinking that way, or everybody in my town or friend circle thinks that way. I get to make a different decision and a different choice for myself based on what I want. And I write about that in my book. I'll read you a couple of things from my book that I think will really
Yeah.
be good for this conversation too. But again, every day we get that opportunity to ask the question and then learn something new through the choice that we make. Because when we make a new choice, we're going out into unfamiliar territory because we're changing. Right. And nothing changes if we don't change. So if we want a different life, but we keep doing the same things, we're not going to have a different life, but we're going to keep hoping for a different life. But we're going to get up every day and just sink into a subconscious programming and do the same thing every day, drive the same way to the gym or drive the same way to work. And how many times have you driven somewhere and you stop and you turn the car off and you don't even remember the drive? Because you've either been listening to a podcast on the phone, or maybe talking through speaker on the phone, or you're talking with your kids, right? Or you're thinking about something else completely, because we're so complex. We can think about what we're thinking about, and we can judge ourselves for thinking about what we're thinking about, and we can question and think, like, all of that can happen. It's fascinating. The brain is so different than our mindfulness, and it's so different than when our heart and soul is speaking, and all those conversations can be going on. But that awareness brings clarity, and that clarity brings us to the point of being able to make a new choice. And now we're in new territory. And that unfamiliar could be considered outside our comfort zone, because a lot of times the comfort zone of how we're living isn't comfortable. It's just familiar. And I've seen this so many times where people go back to that old lifestyle just because it was easier, because it was familiar, because the unfamiliar is new and the brain can't track that. The brain is this computer that's brilliant, that's downloading information. And just like my computer, if I disconnected from Wi-Fi, I would no longer have access to all of the answers to the questions I'm looking for, all the experiences that are new and different, and how I'm going to grow and expand and have a new life if I want to build a new life and create a new future, whatever. If I take that Wi-Fi out, I'm only allowed now to access what's previously been downloaded, my past, right? Which is great. The brain has its purpose, and we need that. And it's a survival mechanism, and it's awesome. But we get to remember every day that we actually get to create through new choices, new habits. I did that 25 years ago. I'm so grateful. In that moment of clarity, I decided I don't want to keep going down that road, right? I wanted to make a new choice and live differently. I wanted to feel young and healthy and energetic and vibrant. And I was only 33 at the time. I was a young mother and had two major surgeries 2 years in a row. Woke up from the second surgery completely menopausal at 33 because of the full hysterectomy, right? Like you can hear about that whole, I talk about it in my podcast, because like you sharing, like when we're sharing this, somebody's going to have a similar experience and they're going to have an awareness and a clarity because of that in their own life, hopefully, because we hope to inspire and share through our vulnerability, right, of sharing our own story.
Yep.
And our journey. And that's so powerful because we're all really wanting the same thing, which is to live our best lives and give the way we came here to give, right? But if we don't allow ourselves to live and receive that beautiful existence, we're not going to have that to give. I always say we can't give away what we don't have. If we allow our bodies to break down because we haven't paid attention to what we're doing, what we're not doing, are we keeping them strong? All of those things that are part of this great big wellness picture. If we allow that to break down, we're going to end up in, at some point having to pay attention to a sickness, to a disease, to an injury, to a surgery, to, that decline. And I always want to remind people, you get a choice to not have to go down that road. I really believe that the body is such a miraculous healing machine that when we learn what it needs and we start to give it what it needs, then we can watch it do its amazing things, right? And we can get better. And then when we have more energy, we have more energy to give. We have more time. We're not focused on sickness or all of the things that come with that. We're now focused on continuing to improve our energy and improve the way that we feel. And that allows us to go out and do more and give more of ourselves to our families, to the world, and to whatever our passion in this world is, and leaving a positive impact in that way. And I just don't believe that aging is the problem. It's inflammation. It's an inflammation. When I break it down in my book, I break it down and we can have inflammatory thoughts, right? What are the inflammatory thoughts that are keeping you from making positive choices today? Are you in self-condemnation? Are you beating yourself up? Are you living in the past? The past, it has its lessons, it has its purpose, but it doesn't have to continue unless we drag it into the future, right? So the awareness of the present moment is so beautiful. We step away from living reactively, like we're not a victim. Life isn't just happening to us, right? Tony Robbins says life is happening for us, right? And we get to step into that and go, that's amazing. What beautiful thing can happen today? And I get to make this choice and ask that question and create, my new future. I always say what we do today or don't do today determines how we live 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now. And I'm 58 and I still want to be energetic at 98.
Well, and I do too. You brought up a lot of things. In the one thing about the aging part is it's also your mentality, and it's about
Yes.
when you tell yourself you're old, you're going to be old.
Yes.
And when you tell yourself you can go do it, you might do it a little slower. I'm still young. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go see this. That's where the curiosity comes in. That's what keeps me going. And I love seeing. My last breath is going to be on a mountain because I want to see the last sunrise or last sunset, whatever I get to see, because I think that that's the place that I want to be. The other thing, when you're talking about choices, I don't know, I think I could go back about to when choices comes with confidence, I think. And when you become confident within yourself and start making those choices, those good choices, like I'm confident and I don't give a darn if I've made this joke a few times before, like when I was go back to my mom and dad's or something like that, I would go running or biking or whatever, but it doesn't matter. They'd say, who's chasing you? Because why are you doing this if nobody's chasing you? And I was confident with my choice that I want to do that. And now and the other thing you were talking about too is I don't think that we are realizing that we need to see the view, not just when you were talking about I have driven 4 hours or more back to my parents' place, and I was listening to a book and I didn't even remember where I mean, I was just driving. And
Yeah.
I and there's funny because I was listening to a episode of Joe Rogan yesterday, and it's it's a great episode, but they said that our brain does not have firewalls for the technology we have now. There's no firewalls in the human brain to stop or say no, we don't need to do this. But they said that we only think about within ourselves about 10% of our day.
Mhm.
And when we aren't thinking within ourselves more than 10%, and I'm one of those crazy people that talks to myself, and I think within myself a lot more than that. I assume, because I'm always thinking how to be better or what challenge can I make or this and that. But that is amazing. And then the other thing is when we have confidence and we're making the right choices and we know kind of the direction we want to go, we have peace.
Yes.
And when you have peace within yourself, the confidence keeps building. And then we become a better person because we're confident within ourselves and we can show that to the world. And maybe we can inspire somebody else when they say, how did you become so peaceful? It's because I had to let some things go and when you're talking about the past, I've had to let a lot of things go in the past that I kept on reliving. And you can't relive your past and change it because it's already past. That's why we call it the past. And
Yep.
I had to look within myself and say, I am reliving my past. You need to finally stop. You need to get the scissors out and cut it or whatever you need to, you know what I mean, cut the
Yep.
past and say, I learned from that
Yep.
choice, but I'm not going to make that choice again because you just keep on reliving and you never have that peace. This is my favorite episode of the Don't Die Rusty podcast was Ashley, Kelly Lovelace, and Ricky Bruley and I had a discussion about if you had 24 hours to live, would you be at peace or would you be panicked? And I love it's my favorite episode, but it was a question I kept asking myself, and I said, guys, we got to get together and we got to do this because I want everybody's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people wouldn't be at peace because of the choices they've made, and some people are panicking because they haven't lived.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I got Don't Die Rusty, because I want to live. And if you're panicked because you haven't done enough or feel that you haven't been the good enough person and you aren't bettering yourself and this and that, today's the day to change because today's gone and you only have tomorrow. So keep on improving yourself. And I like
love
what you
that.
say.
Yeah, and to your point, because you tied together so great in that, would you be at peace or would you be panicked? And that comes back again to the consciousness of where we are, what we want, where we're going, and why we're here. So back to the driving. So we talked about the driving. I say unconsciously, right? When you said it's they say most people are living 90 to 95% of their day on a subconscious programming. That's why I brought up the driving, because if our body can drive somewhere because it's a program that has been so deeply conditioned that we don't even have to think consciously about it, right? What else in our lives are we doing like that? And that's
Exactly.
and so that's the awareness where we get to say every day, all right, maybe, because the brain again is going to bring things up. That's its job. You're going to look at something and it'll remind you of something you may want to remember or you may not want to remember. But to your point, you get to say every day, and I love that you brought that up, I don't want to think about that. And talking to yourself out loud to say that is brilliant, because you're telling your brain, thank you for the reminder, but we want to put that one in the archives, right?
Yep.
Because we're creating a new thought. We know our worth. We know our value. That's the confidence. It's not in looks or credentials or accolades. It's in, how do I feel about myself as a soul walking this planet? And am I living what I feel like I'm supposed to live? And I believe that we all come here to be generous in some way. And that's why I talk about giving of yourself. If you don't have it to give, you don't have it to give. So we've got to make sure that we're, living that, embodying that which we want to be in order to be able to give the way we came here to give. Because again, to your point, which I think is so brilliant, we want that peace. And that peace comes from fulfillment, because at the end of our lives, what we want is to know we did the best, right? We really gave what we could. We learned all we could. We were generous, because I believe generosity is the ultimate fulfillment. I really do. And so being generous with yourself and forgiving ourselves is sometimes the hardest thing. Giving ourselves the grace that we give others, right? We're very good, most of us, about forgiving other people and giving them grace. If someone's saying they feel they shouldn't have done this or that, it's like, yeah, that's in the past. But do we give ourselves that same grace when we feel like we've made a mistake, right? And so, yes, due diligence if we feel like we need to go and make amends, but do we make amends to ourselves? So, and then it's about letting it go, like you said. So I love that. Let it go, move on. That's again the awareness. So that's why I called my podcast Conscious Wellness, because when we're conscious of being able to ask the question, what do I want? Who do I want to be? What legacy do I want to leave? What positive impact am I here to make? What am I here to learn? And then what am I here to give back? And when we ask ourselves those questions, now we're out in a proactive state of mind and not a reactive state of mind. Now we know that we're creating our life instead of, like I always use the analogy, like, have you ever felt like the ball in a pinball machine and life just smacked you into the game and now you're bouncing off, right? Everybody
Yeah,
can
oh, yeah.
relate to what a day like that feels like. And
Yes.
the awareness of it, and I'm huge on reminders. I'm huge on notifications. Like clients will say to me, because I'm big into hydration, they'll say to me, well, I always forget to drink water. And I'll say, put it in your calendar. You are a notification in your phone. It's like a dentist appointment. Every 2 hours, drink my water, or whatever it might be, get my workout, whatever somebody wants to do. So put that notification in your phone. You're worthy of having an appointment with yourself. Make it a non-negotiable in your life, because today, you're right, the past is gone. Tomorrow is going to be today when we wake up. So what we do today determines our tomorrow. And every day is the first day of the rest of our lives. It really is.
It is, and I feel like I've missed out if I don't see a sunrise. I mean, and I can't say that it happens every day, because sometimes we have cloudy days. That's why I put up a different picture. Nobody wants to see me every day. And here's what I picture. I picture when I post my posts on either Don't Die Rusty or I post my posts on my own personal page in the mornings. Some days I post me, sometimes I post the sunrises. Right now I can't because I'm going to work my regular job, and I'm going to work and the sun isn't even up yet, so I have no sunrise. So I go take pictures over the weekend and try to get the sunrises. But here's the deal. It is, when you were talking earlier about giving and in more or less giving in gratitude and living the best life, here my thoughts on this are that if I can make somebody smile every day, if I can give somebody something to think about, but not, I don't need to have a picture of me, because it's not about me. If you see the wonderful sunrise and I gave it to you, because I have some people say, I don't need to get out of bed because I know you're going to give me a sunrise anyway, kind of giving me heck. But if you can put that smile on somebody's face and you don't even know it, that is giving to the world in itself, and it's
Yes.
giving me something that the Dalai Lama says you should do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because it's right for you. And that's not exactly how he said it, but I say it how I said it. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly not a Dalai Lama. I'm just kidding. But I've read a lot. I read a lot of this. I read a lot of philosophy. I read a lot of things, and my goal in life is to be the best person and the best that I can be in, like you said earlier, fulfill my life with all kinds of goodness. And I had problems. No, years ago, I had problems with the "Be Kind" T-shirts because I said it shouldn't be kind. I said it should. If you're the best person you can be, you're already kind. So you should. I thought the shirt said "Be the best you." Don't you know what I mean? If we are the best us, we are giving to the world. You shouldn't have to tell somebody to be kind. Be the best you. Just to me, that's a different thinking. And I'm reading a book now. It's called Hardwired Happiness. And the funny
That's
thing
good.
about this is, and it was, and it's by Rick Hanson, which is really funny
That
because it's
is,
not by me.
I mean,
But he was saying, like, take, if you have a negative thought, take that thought out and put that positive thought where your negative thought was, and it'll start accumulating. And when you're talking about when we're unconsciously driving to work or driving to the store or wherever we're unconsciously driving, and I posted this the other day because I read it out of his book too, and it made tremendous sense to me. Was we need to stop and take time, like I said, take 10 seconds to look at this, to see what you're seeing, not just look and glimpse. Because if you take that 10 seconds, now it's imprinted in your mind or your heart, and you will remember it. But if you're unconsciously just driving to work and say, oh, that's a great sunrise, and look at those colors, and you don't notice it. But when you stop and take a mental picture of this, it'll stay with you. So when you say, I'm going to be the best person I can be, if you think about being the best person you can be instead of uh, just write it here and like to be kind, if you think about being the best person, you probably will start changing to be the best person if you keep on thinking about that kind of stuff. And what is the best person? The best person to me is for me to be the best me is what you're doing, wellness. Because if I can't go do this, I have 2 torn meniscus, but I'm walking every day. Okay. But if I am unhealthy, I can blame the unhealthiness. So I'm angry or and it, here's another, I'm going to go off a little here today, but I had a physical. I do not take any like medication for high blood pressure or anything. Like I'm medication free, we'll say. I do take vitamins and supplements and stuff like that, but I'm just saying. And then today I had, at 57 or going close to it, I went and had to the eye doctor. I have 20/20 vision.
wow, awesome.
And he said, and he's going, that's rare for a 57-year-old to roughly to have that. But I've always taken care of my eyes. And I did a little funny post because I know the people that work there. And I said, this is so I can see the view, though. If your eyes are gone, you'll never see the view. And I never want to not see the view in my life. And there's more views to see, not just through your eyes, but through your mind and through your heart. Because I want to see the goodness in people. And it's so fun. You know, the best people in the world to show you goodness, if you don't recognize it, is go somewhere where there are little kids. Because there are a lot of little kids out there that will show kindness to their friends and kindness to others. And sometimes we need to have a reality check and say, we were that person one time, and maybe we need to, as an adult, we need to start looking at ourselves and be kind to those other people.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think about time with my granddaughter and little kids, they don't judge themselves. I can remember, the first time my babies saw themselves in the mirror, they're ecstatic. They're not judging what they see. They're in
Yep.
love with the reflection. They're fascinated, right?
Yep.
They're just fascinated. And we just get conditioned. So this is so good what you're talking about, because you're breaking free from conditioning. And, people will say to me, you must have so much willpower, because I'm 58. I'm healthier, happier, stronger than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm healthier and stronger than I was when I was 28, 38, 48. And I want to continue doing that, right? It's a choice every day. Don't always feel like doing it. And then you stop and you go, okay, what do I want? How do I want to live? What choices am I going to make? And people will say, you have so much willpower. And it's like, it's really not willpower. It's gratitude of this gift that we have called life, and the ability to make choices, and the ability to act on those choices and intentionally decide how we want to live, and then take that inspired action toward that result. And then continue to learn, continue to have these conversations where you inspire me, your posts inspire me. That's why, when you asked if I would be here, I love what you're doing. You are living this beautiful purpose of helping other people to remember the beauty of life. So you're helping people get out of that programming. And that's what we're doing, is we're reprogramming our minds from how it used to think to how do we want to think. And then we get to say that. And I write about that in my book too. And that reprogram, I do that in the gym with people. So I'm a functional core strength trainer in my personal training part of what I do. And it's reprogramming the way that the body is stabilizing itself. So I help people to release the old programming of how their muscles were working when they weren't conscious of using their core as their prime stabilizer. Maybe they sit all day long. They've lost their core strength. Pregnancies, injuries, just standing up all the time or sitting down all the time. And then we learn to bend over as we get older instead of squatting, because babies, what do? They squat. Babies are always in a deep squat position. They sit there and I remember my kids doing that. They sit in a squat and they play that way, and then they stand up. They sit and squat, hundreds of times a day once they can stand. And then we stop doing that when we learn to bend over, and then we sit, and our whole musculoskeletal support changes in the way that our body is using the muscles to support our spine. So as a core strength trainer, I'm helping people to reprogram. And it's not just do this exercise. This is what you're focusing on. This is what you're thinking about. You're engaging the muscle here. Connect this with your breath. We're using transverse abdominis. We're keeping our shoulders down, releasing the trapezius. And now we're going to focus on that as our prime core stabilizer, which is protecting our lumbar spine, protecting our whole spine, supporting. And it adds that correct stabilization so that the secondary muscles that are trying to stabilize get to go back to where they're supposed to be. So reprogramming the way that the body is meant to function from a musculoskeletal way, and then that can relieve a lot. So a lot of times, clients will come to me after they're done with their physical therapy, because now we're reprogramming the muscles back to a balanced state. And so we're doing that in every area of our life. So instead of just going to the grocery store and throwing the things in the cart that we've eaten our entire lives, right? And maybe we don't even know why. We've never questioned it. We never thought it should be different or could be different. And then we have awareness, and we have the clarity in that moment of, maybe I'll just look at the ingredients. Maybe there's a better option here that isn't going to, be an inflammatory thing for the body. Maybe there's something healthier I can choose. And then that awareness gives us the opportunity to make that choice. And then now we're opened up to a whole new world of learning about how to eat healthier, so that we're putting things in our body that's going to help our body and not create a challenge for the body in what's actually going in there. And then that makes a positive change too.
I got a question for you then. How long does it take to reprogram a person that hasn't, they might have had it 20 years ago, but they forgot about it, and now they're trying to reprogram? I know it'd be a while, but it's interesting to me, the reprogramming, because I'll be honest, I'm reprogramming myself more in the eating part right now than I am physically, because I figure I can physically, I'm not afraid to do the stuff I want to do, because I do go for my walks. I'll go for hikes, and I go do other stuff. We have a little I don't like going to the gym so much as I like. We have stuff downstairs in my basement that we do
Awesome.
like that stuff. But what I'm saying is how does it? How do you? How long does it take to reprogram some of your clients?
Well, it depends. I mean, it really varies depending on their consistency, how often, they're coming to see me, how often they're doing things at home. That's why I'm so big on reminders. I have little sticky notes that I have a 3-step core connection exercise that I do with everybody in the beginning. And then before we do any exercise, before we do anything, we do that 3-step core connection to re-engage the correct stabilization of the primary core muscles that are supposed to be the deepest. Yes, the powerhouse, right? It's what's really supporting the spine. Too many times we're like this, our phones are here, our computers are here, we become rounded, we lose that core strength that's allowing us to be in this position. So better posture, better balance, better center of gravity. The most important part is that protection of the lumbar spine, which can become vulnerable when we're always rounded like this because we don't have the
Mm-hmm.
right muscles protecting. And so we're leaving it vulnerable to injury or spinal issues like disc problems or things like that. And then we don't want to fall, right? So what's somebody's biggest concern when they get older is you don't want to fall. So the better balance you have, the better core strength you have, the stronger you are that way, you're less likely going to flail if you do slip or you miss that bottom stair, all of those scenarios that we all know. And so that's what I love to help in the gym part of it. So how long does it take? It depends on the person, how consistent they are, and how aware and conscious they are of continuing that process. Because it can't just be an hour a week in the gym with me. And then, it's like you can't just brush your teeth
Yeah.
once a week. You can't just, right? That's why I love that it's every single day we get the opportunity to continue down whichever road we choose. And that's a choice. And then take that awareness into every aspect of our wellness. So I have this, and I didn't come up with this. I call it
Yeah.
the whole life wellness wheel. It's been utilized in all kinds of self-development and lots of different psychology and all types of things. But you take a circle and I divide it up into 8 pieces. And then each sliver of pie or whatever you want to call it in this circle that you've divided up into 8 wedges has a part of your life, right? It's relationships, financial, physical, mental, emotional, environmental. All of these, like I talk about the wellness picture. And I want to say this too before I finish this. This is not about always making the perfect choices. There's no such thing. So let's just let that go right now. We're human beings. Sometimes we're going, right? Like they say, oh, it's overwhelming. How are you so? It's not willpower. It's just deciding how I want to live. And I'm making this choice. And if we do something, eat something, or, say something, or we have a bad experience or a fight with somebody, take that moment and just let it go, make amends if you need to. If it's a meal or whatever it is, people beat themselves up for things. Don't take that into the next day. Don't even take it into the next hour. Let it go, forgive yourself, stay focused on what you want, and most importantly, why you want it. So in every area of life, we get to have, and I take people through, I have a small online group and we started that way. We go through that wellness wheel and we look at every area. And the first thing I say is, this is not judgment. This is not for you to judge yourself. This is for non-judgmental, non-reactive awareness. Because if we don't have awareness of where we are, we're not going to know the next step to take, right? Like if you ask GPS to get you to a certain location, but it doesn't know where you are, you're going to spin around because we don't know where we're
Mm-hmm.
starting from. So that to me, especially with women, a lot of times is the hardest part because they're so hard on themselves. We are. And well, I think all of us are. I think maybe we're just
Yeah.
more vocal about it. I don't know. But I just really want to give everybody just the permission to know that nobody is ever doing everything. There's no such thing as perfect, air quotes around perfect, because it's just a word that is not even in reality. We're all doing the best we can, and we all get the beautiful gift of a choice. And that is really, I think, what to focus on, because what do we want? But the most important thing this is what keeps people consistent. This is what's kept me consistent. It's not willpower. It's not I'm powering over my, right? Like, it's not that. It's I made a
Yeah.
choice that I let go of what wasn't working. And I was so curious about how I could feel better, live better, be a better mother, more energetic, and help my body heal and continue that. And that's every single day. But it's not the willpower thing, or I have to do this, or, I start on Monday. It's just why. Okay. So what do I want? But the most important thing is, why do I want it? So when I take people through the questionnaire, when I first start, it's like, why is this the time you're ready to start this? Or why is this the time you want this goal? What's your goal? What do you want? What's your goal? What's your timeline? Then we reverse engineer the action step it takes to get there, just very logically, right? Putting those pieces in place, those puzzle pieces I talked about. But then I say, now here's the very important question. Why do you want it? Well, I want to be healthy. Everybody does. Why do you want to be healthy? Well, I want to be strong. I want to be able to. Why do you want that? Why do you want to be able to hike to the top of the mountain all your life? Why do you want to be playing with why do you want that? Because you really want to be able to give back to your family and the world, and your soul wants so much to live out its purpose. And so you want that ultimate fulfillment of knowing that you were able to do everything you came here to do. And it's usually family, loved ones, a deep, compassionate purpose, and a passion for what you want to give back in this world.
I like that you say why, because when you ask the question back, then people have to think about an answer. And people don't like to think about answers. It's like we were talking, it's like we were talking a little bit earlier before we got online. It's about, I'm getting very interested into functional medicine because I want to get to the root cause. I don't want to fix a
Yes.
symptom. I don't want a pill to fix a symptom because that's not what I want. And I like also what you were saying, and I'll probably come back to the functional stuff, but I also like what you were saying because I'm a hunter and we eat a lot of 90% of our meat is what I have I have hunted and for my year. That's normally what we eat. It's so I know that part is where that meat came from, and I have a hippie wife who I'm eating more whole foods. Okay, and here's the other thing. But though when hunting season comes around and I'm making a quick trip somewhere or whatever, and you're driving down the road to go somewhere or whatever, it's easy to go into a convenience store and buy a Coke. Or it's easier to go do this and that. And if you don't give yourself grace for this kind of stuff, you still have to enjoy life. I don't want to live a long life. I want to live a good life. And grace is a good life. Here's where we're it's funny, these things just pop into my head, but when I was talking about I don't want to fix the symptoms, that's what we do when 90% of the time, if we don't find the root cause of a health problem, we are just fixing that little problem, and you're not living that. You could live a long life because you're taking all these freaking pills, and I don't want to have to do that, and I'd rather climb that mountain. Here's my problem with climbing the mountain, though, is I climb to the mountain, then I wonder what's over on the other side of that other mountain, hillside, and you just keep on going. But that's not a problem because it just keeps me moving. Why do I want to climb to the top of? I like to climb before sunrise. I like to get to the top of the mountain, the cotton candy skies. I like to see the sun come up in the morning. But when you said why do I do that? Well, I was thinking to myself, it's because have you ever, anybody out there listening to this can think about this, but nobody knows what the sky is going to unwrap for us every morning. Nobody knows what this is going to look like. I've climbed in the clouds and came out, and there's a beautiful sunrise. I've climbed when I thought I've seen stars, and you don't really watch the sky, and the clouds came in. I've climbed and it got above a rainbow. I mean, you never know what you're going to see. That's why I climb, because there's always a surprise for you, and it's fun to be surprised. And when nature can surprise you, that's what keeps me going.
It brings you
And life,
joy. It brings you
it
joy. And that fulfills your
yes,
soul. And we forget that we're here to be happy too. We do. I
Yes.
think as humans, we forget, we're so used to all the things we have to do, accomplish, you know, and people get to the end of their lives and they forgot to enjoy their life. Right. And
Yes.
so then, oftentimes if someone gets to the end of their life and they've forgotten, they've been so focused on, whatever it was that they thought was important. And no judgment there. Everybody's different, right? But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we forget to take care of ourselves and we forget to enjoy ourselves, you could be living your entire life in a physical fight or flight, stressed out way, thinking that you're reaching
Hmm.
some thing that you think is important or your parents thought was important or your job or whatever, right? But you're
Hmm.
doing something that's bringing you joy, and that is a healthy activity for you. So when we talk about, wellness, that is a really great wellness practice for you. It brings you joy, which helps your body to be in a state of repair and renewal instead of fight or flight, right? So we have
Yep.
parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And that sympathetic nervous system is really damaging to the body because it's stress hormones, which are inflammatory. And so,
Hmm.
exercise helps to relieve that, making sure we have enough hydration to be able to detox, and our circulation and our digestion, our lymphatic flow, and all of those things are working so that the body can detox from those types of inflammatory negative hormones, right? Because fight or flight is cortisol and adrenaline, and cortisol is it has its place, but when we are constantly stressed and constantly upset and constantly striving and constantly, not happy or allowing ourselves what you're allowing yourself, you are in a state of inflammation, and inflammation at the chronic level is the root cause of every disease process. So to get to the root cause, you've got to get to the contributors of that inflammation. And I look at it as a formula. So what are the three main contributors I write about in my book of inflammation? Acidity, too much acidosis. You've probably heard of metabolic acidosis. That's when it gets so
Hmm.
bad that you are, that's clearly close to death. You don't want that. Your body will do everything it can to avoid metabolic acidosis. So it's always trying to balance the blood pH and the rest of the body and the systems and all the functions. So it has neutralizing balances, it has compensatory balances for deficiencies, things like that are always going on behind the scenes. So how much of what we're doing is creating acidosis? Let's reduce that. So acidosis, oxidation, which is free radical damage. So if you've heard of antioxidants, we need antioxidants. You said you take supplements. You probably know to eat. Your wife is probably helping you to remember to eat berries, blueberries,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
green.
love berries. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, they're full of
The-
so many beautiful polyphenols and antioxidants. So that's awesome. So we need antioxidants because oxidation, which is part of why I really liked your title, Don't Die Rusty, because oxidation is like rust on a car, right? It is
Mhm.
eating away at that metal. It's when you cut an apple in half and it turns brown. That's oxidation. So we do not want oxidation in abundance in our body. We want free radicals. You get your bare feet in the dirt, in the sand, your body's absorbing antioxidants from the earth. You consume nutritional antioxidants. There's water that has antioxidant naturally. It mimics the stream on the beautiful mountain that's unpolluted. That's something I believe in 100%. We get our antioxidants to reduce oxidation. So acidosis, oxidation, and dehydration, I think, are the three biggest contributors to inflammation. When we can take a formula and we don't like that sum total, we reduce the contributors. Like that's a logical way to go. Okay, let's reduce acidosis through what we're doing, eating, drinking, thinking, what we're putting on our skin, what we're breathing in. What are the cleaners in our home? What are we using that are absorbing into our body through our lungs and our skin? What personal care products are we using? Makeup, hair, showering in. What's the water that we're showering in? That's absorbing. Are they creating acidity and oxidation, or are they actually giving our body healthful nutrients so that we're not causing our body a challenge? So that's one of the contributors. Oxidation. Are we getting in enough antioxidants? Are we in a stressed out state all the time because cortisol is causing acidity to the body at a level that the body is really struggling to balance? So I love to talk about that, because so people will go, well, what do? I don't even know where to start. We start by just having awareness that maybe we're not completely happy with where we are. If we are, great. Find out what you're doing in that area where you feel like you're thriving, and then apply those same tools, those same mindset tools, discipline tools, inspired action steps into the next, right? Because some of us have 2 or 3 of those wedges like dialed in on our life circle. Some of them are like, we got this going on, but man, we're a mess over here. Right. And again,
Yep.
it's not about judgment. It's about, well, if I can do it over here, I can do it over here too. And it's not going to happen overnight. And it's not about making some big change and some big giant leap. It's those incremental little changes every single day. That's why this is a life's journey. That's why it's such a gift, because every day we get up and we get to decide, to do something better. What does Jim Rohn say? Oh, don't wish it was easier. Decide to be better.
There you go.
Jim Rohn. I love that. Yeah.
Because here's a funny thing, because what you were talking about is in the oxidation part, and where do we start? I had a friend on, Jordan Harbison, and he talked about when you are driving down the road and you see an old vehicle out in a pasture or in a field or in a line of cars, and somebody can see that, and it's their project to make it, they can see it and make it better. They can revive that old car. So when we look at ourselves, when you're talking about like oxidation can make you rusty, so we can be tarnished, but the project can be us. And he talked about also, as us being our own project, we can start shining our own chrome. We can start making ourselves that project, and we can make ourselves that better person by being healthier in that aspect. So the oxidation starts leaving us, and that's like you said, that's wellness, that's mental, that's all kinds of stuff.
Whole life, the whole life.
Whole life. And we need to look at things. I like the barefoot thing too, because how many people these days, here's the funny thing. I lived in Australia for a year, and I've been back. I went back about 4 other times after that. But here's the deal. Where I lived when I went back, I was barefoot probably 50% of the time, walking, because I lived where I was staying was close to the beach.
Awesome.
And so I'd walk down there barefoot. I'd walk everywhere barefoot, except when it was really hot out. Of course, you'd be hopping around, so you needed shoes on. But what I'm saying is, how many people walk in the grass barefoot?
Mm-hmm.
How good does that feel even if you're in sandals, how good does that feel in the summer to walk in a green grass and feel it's between your toes or in the sand? How many people just don't realize that they're in taking this, like they cover up their feet on the beach or with sand, or they do, they don't feel what it's really doing for them, because it's also a mental as well as physical
100%.
thing too. And we need to also look at, I'm using this as an example, but when you are trying to do something, we got to realize that sometimes the good times will turn into a bad time. In this aspect, where I'm going is this: we might think that going out with our friends when we're 20, 25, and we drink a little too much and this and that was a good time. But then you wake up in the morning and you have a hangover, that's a bad time. But you can also look at the bad time as a good time, because I couldn't go on that out with the people that were going out, and now I don't have the hangover and I get to enjoy the day. So we have to put things in perspectives of where do we want to go to in some aspects, because some people don't realize, like, some people think they missed out on something, but actually you gained a good thing by not being able to do that. And I know I went off track here, but I wrote that it was somewhere
no,
in
that's
our
very good.
discussion here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so we need to realize that life is good times and bad times, and you don't know if one of those is going to go in those direction, is what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
But I love how you were telling about the three things and how we can improve ourselves.
Yep.
And sometimes I don't want to say preachy, but I probably am preachy with some people. Like, you can do this if you would make that decision, but you got to make that conscious choice. And you can't keep on using other things as excuses. You can't. I said that earlier, in one podcast. I gave myself permission, and I gave myself excuses not to go do things when I should have been doing them, and it drug me down mentally, it drug me down physically. Yes, I was still moving, but I wasn't doing it to the extent where I was feeling good. And when you gotta start mentally saying, I feel good, and I wake up at 4:30, 4:45, somewhere in that every morning. I don't push snooze. Never push snooze. You get your butt out of bed right then. And
But
if
your
people
alarm
say, "How do you
clock's
do
so
that?"
far away, that you have to get up to turn it off.
Yeah, and I get up, and
Yep.
then
Good.
I do what I need to do. I mean, go to the bathroom, get ready, and I go out for my walk. But you know what? It's not. We need to get into the mindset that I'm going to miss it somewhat. This is my mindset, is if I don't do it, I'm going to miss it, and then I'll miss it all day if I wouldn't do it. So get out there and do it. And that's with everything I say, is do what makes you happy, but there's a difference between happiness and joy.
Yeah.
Because joy is fulfilling.
Yes.
Happiness can stay with you a while, but joy will fulfill you. One thing about life is, if you don't have peace, then you will never fix yourself anyway, because you're always searching to find that pill that will give you peace, and the peace is the root of the problem. The peace
That's right.
comes from straight in your heart and your mind, and you can only get better with that, and I'm probably rambling here, but I just look at things, and I look at people, and I say, if you would make one good decision here, your life would change. And I have been lucky enough, probably, I would say maybe 2 or 3 people that I have seen them make the right decision in their life and start turning things around.
Yeah.
And we had an episode about integrity and other things about 4 episodes ago, and what we were getting at was, sometimes you don't know when that person comes into your life, and you flick on that switch and you make the first good decision. You may never know that at that time, and you might get 3 or 4 years down the road, and then you can look, because here's a problem with a lot of people these days, is they don't look introspectively. They will not look within themselves to say, I need to do this. It's everybody else's fault. But I'm saying, when you make the right decision and you start changing that, and it might be a slow hill to climb, but when you start climbing that hill to make yourself better, and you can look back and you can say, because I've had a few people come and say that, and I've told a few people that have helped me make the right decision, thank you. And when you can tell that person, thank you, I didn't know it at the time, but you started changing my life. That's, those are the things that people need to look at too, by making the right choices. I guess I'm trying to say, tell that person that they have influenced you. There is nothing better than gratitude. And for people to see things. I'm a yard manager at a store here, and I tell my guys mostly every day, thank you for something they did, because other people don't see that. I tell people thank you. If you can just say that word, a lot of people can't say that word. Say thank you. And then things might start changing. And I love where we've been here on this episode, and we really didn't even get into wellness. I don't know.
There's so much to talk about. We kind of touched on, but again, it's such a vast topic, and it involves, that's why I call it whole life wellness, because it's not just one part of our life. It's not just physical. Everything affects everything else. Our mental state, our emotional state can be affected by our physical health, and our physical health can be affected by our mental, emotional state. Financial stress can cause so much stress that it affects our physical, right? Stress can cause physical illness. It's just all connected. And so that's why it's so important to just have the awareness of, where am I? And am I happy with my life? Am I fulfilled with my life? What would I like to be different? And like, to your point again, a lot of people are afraid to ask that question because they feel like maybe they did something wrong, and everyone's doing the best they can at the level of awareness they have at the time. Those are the decisions they're making. So back to where we started kind of is, where are we in a subconscious state of reactive living, or are we in a conscious state of proactively making our choices based on what we want? And then that takes being able to look at, what are the decisions I'm making? What are the things I'm eating, drinking? I always talk about wellness from the inside out. We get to rebuild it from the inside out and the foundation up anytime we want to. And then we stay consistent. So when you ask me, how long does it take to reprogram? That depends on the person. It depends on how consistent they are, how open they are, how much they want what it is that they want and why they want it, whatever that is in their life. And then they get to determine how fast that happens or how fully that happens. Right?
Well, here's one thing that I think a lot of people, that they might want to change, but they don't want to ask the questions because they're embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed about asking questions about making yourself feel better, think better. And when I talk about mental health wise, feel better, think better, and just change to make some really good choices about living your best life, because there is nothing better out there than to smile and to say, you know what, I wish I would have done this 20 years ago, but you know what? You and I, like we said, we're 58, 50, going to be 57 for me. I'm hoping to be like doing this stuff at 100. I saw a 80-year-old guy jump off a cliff the other day and I'm thinking that's where I want to be someday. And there's another example, as my dad walks 4 miles a day, 3 to 4 miles a day at
Awesome.
81.
Awesome.
And so I have one question for you. Well, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
Before we end this, because I know it's a Friday night and I know that you probably have things going on. The first question I want to ask you is, I hope you will come back on again so we have another great conversation, because
I'd love to.
It makes me smile to have such great conversations.
Me too.
I told my wife, I said, you know what, I miss college in some aspects because of the conversations that were had in classes, but now I'm podcasting, so I get to have great conversations and don't have to pay for it. So that's all. And plus I think sometimes I talk to the right people and I get 3 or 4 credits out of this too, so that's good.
Yes.
This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I'm so happy that you said yes.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy that you asked, and I've had a blast.
And the last question we always ask on this is, what's the good life to Lori Ellis?
Say that again, the good life?
What's the good life?
What's the good life? My family is my why. They say, and it'll bring tears to my eyes, they say when your why makes you cry, it's It's your why, right? It's your deepest reason. My family, my kids, my granddaughter. So when I can be there for them and I can show up authentically in my life and what I feel my soul's purpose is to share with the world. And then when I can be the best me I can be, which I bring up this is a long answer, which I never have short answers because there's just so much that goes with it. But when you say walking to the top of the mountain, it brings you joy. That's you investing in yourself. You now have more to give to whatever you feel your why is, right? So by doing what I feel I'm doing to help the world and the purpose that I have in the season of my life now, that's investing in me, investing in my health and my wellness, keeping myself strong and healthy and well is giving me more to give to my kids and be here for my granddaughter in a way that I want to be. So the best life for me is feeling generous, fulfilled, allowing myself to receive what I need to receive in order to give what I want to give and be there for the people I love and be able to consistently do that. I don't want to be a burden to anyone at the end of my life. I don't want to struggle or be on medications or worried about immobility. So these are practical physical things that I invest in today so that I can live that, tomorrow and 30 years from now. And it all comes back to my deepest why. My best life is doing all I can for the people that I love and leaving a positive impact for them. And for all of the other passions in my life that I feel, are mine to contribute to in the way that I can. Everybody's different, right? So we're so busy comparing. I think so many times the human condition likes to compare and compete and contrast, but the soul just wants to give what it came here to give. And so when you said people struggle to change, that's the human condition. When we let go of the ego and the human condition and we go back to our heart, because you are Rick Hanson. You came here to do what you came here to do, and it's different than somebody else, right? And so everybody gets to go out and give their unique talents and gifts to the world. So taking care of ourselves so that we have that to give, super important. But yeah, my best life is being able to be here for my family and continue to enjoy my life with my family, my loved ones, and be well enough to do it and give back the way I came here to give and make sure I give everything I possibly can for that ultimate fulfillment in the way that I'm supposed to.
Well, I love hearing that. I agree with you. I've always said we should never pigeonhole ourselves by labels. You're Lori Ellis. I'm Rick Hanson. That's our label. We are so many different people, and we have so many. We have so many different things that make us who we are that you can't say you're this or that. This is who we are.
And don't let anybody tell you who you're supposed to. Can I read one thing from the back of my book real quick? Yeah. So I wrote this back in 2017. Didn't ever release it, published it, but then pulled it from publication, didn't ever promote it. It's going through a little bit of a re-edit. There was something that needed to be added. It's not changed, just adding it. There's a whole story about how I got the foreword written by Jack Canfield. I'll tell you that in the next episode. That was a really fun. I don't know if you know who he is. If you're in self-development, you do. But I just want to read this because it really just kind of is a good thing for what we just talked about. When you let go of everything the world is telling you you're supposed to be, you'll find the freedom of knowing who you really are. And that's when you can give your best gifts to your life.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think if we all remember that you're unique for a reason, no one's better than, worse than. We're all living our own journey, doing the best we can. And our gift is to be able to get up and get to do the best we can every day. Be curious, ask questions, make better choices, live our best life, create the life we want to live for the purpose of our why, your own why. What that is to you is important.
Well, thank you. And
thank you.
You know what? I found a why in the universe, and I found you to be able to have this great conversation with. So that is so, how I am so energized right now. Because of this conversation, and it makes me feel good to know that there are so many good people out in this world, and you're one of them.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Yeah.
I've had such a fun time.
And you also made me feel very happy that we're going to have another episode again someday. So hopefully in the next couple months. So that would be awesome. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. And
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And keeping tabs on each other, and whatever we can do for you is awesome. I mean, because you're awesome.
Thank you.
And so anyway, I'll end the episode so you can enjoy your Friday night, and hopefully you see me on a mountain in the morning. So
awesome. Right on. I'll look for it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Don't die rusty, nation. Keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.